Good morning friends, welcome back to Parnika tutorials. In this video, I want to discuss about process state diagram, how many states are there, what are they. Then I will discuss about long-term scheduler, medium-term scheduler and short-term scheduler. All these concepts I will discuss in detail with you. So I request everyone to watch the complete video for better understanding. First let me discuss the number of states in a process state diagram. Totally we will have 7 states. They are new, ready, running, terminated, wait, suspended wait and suspended ready. So these are the 7 states in a process state diagram. Now let me discuss about each state in detail. The first state is new or create state. What is meant by new or create state is whenever we are writing any C program or Java program or Python program, we will save it in the secondary memory. Now, if you want to execute that program, the program will be brought into the main memory and the execution will happen. Now, a new state, the process is under creation. Okay, once the process has been created, it will be brought into the ready queue or ready state. Who will bring it is, the process will be brought to the ready state by the long-term scheduler. Now, how many process it will be bring into the ready state or ready queue? It depends on the degree of multiprogramming. If your degree of multiprogramming is 50, the meaning is that the ready queue can accommodate 50 processes. Is it clear? So, the ready queue will be there in the main memory. Now, once multiple processes are there in the ready queue, the CPU scheduler will schedule or dispatch any one process, to the running state. Okay, who will do is that this is the short-term scheduler will do. Okay, the short-term scheduler will dispatch or schedule any one process. If you are using the first come first serve, the process which has been arrived first into the ready queue will be sent to the running state first. If it is a shortest job first, which process has the burst time less, that process will be scheduled to the running state. Okay, now we have two types of schedulers. One is the preemptive scheduling mechanisms and non-preemptive scheduling mechanism. Non-preemptive means once the process is scheduled to the running state, it will complete its entire process, then it will be gone to the terminated state. If it is a preemptive, after particular time quantum, okay, suppose if you are using a round robin scheduling mechanism, each process can be executed for a particular time quantum. Once the particular time quantum is completed or a high priority process has been arrived to the ready state, then the process which is running on the running state, suppose let's take that P1 process is currently running in the running state, a P2 process has arrived to the ready state which has the high priority as compared to the P1, then the P1 will be interrupted, it will be transferred to the ready state and P2 will be scheduled to the running state. So even we can call it as an interrupt. Okay, if an interrupt has been occurred, meaning is that whether the high priority process or time quantum is completed, the process which is there in the running state will be shifted to the ready state. Is it clear? Are you able to understand? So based on whether you are using a preemptive scheduling algorithm or non-preemptive scheduling algorithm, this process will happen. Suppose let's take that P1 process is currently running. It needs some IO operations. So if it needs the IO operations, it will interact with the IO devices. Okay, that time if the CPU is idle, CPU utilization will not happen. So what it will do is that the process which needs the IO requests or IO devices, it will be shifted to the wait state. So if any process needs the IO request, it will be sent to the wait state. It is also there in the main memory. See, the running state, ready state and wait state will be there in the main memory, which is nothing but your RAM, random access memory. Once the IO request is completed, then it will be sent to the ready state, not to the running state. See, from the running state, IO request came, it came to the wait state. Once the IO request is completed, it will be shifted to the ready state. From ready state, again it will be scheduled to the running state. Is it clear? I hope it is clear till now. Now let's assume that all the process which are dispatched, all the process needs the IO requests. Suppose let's take that the long-term scheduler has dispatched or having 10 process. All the processes now need the IO request. So let's take that P1 process is there, it has been scheduled to the running state, it needs the IO operations, then it will be sent to the wait state. Then P2, again it has sent. Like that, all the process needs the IO devices, it went to the wait state. Now this wait queue also becomes full. Now another process came, it also in the running state. During its running state, it also needs the IO operations, then it will also come into the wait state. But wait state is completed, the wait queue is completed. Then what it will do is that we will have another state called suspended wait. This suspended wait will be there in the secondary memory. Okay, from the wait state, it will be suspended. Okay, this process number 11, already 10 processes are there, P1 to P10. Now process 11 came, then it will be sent to the suspended wait. We will call it as suspended. Once the IO request operations, everything is completed, if it is ready to work, it can be resumed. Is it clear? Are you able to understand it or not? It is suspended. It needs the IO request. If this queue is empty, then it will be sent to this one, wait state. If this wait state is completely busy, it is not free, but this IO request is completed, then what it will do is that here we will have another state called suspend ready. What is the purpose of this suspend ready? I will discuss for you. This suspend ready, why we need is that, let's assume that this ready queue can support 10 processes. Now the long-term scheduler, the 10 processes were created and been kept in the ready queue. Now the high priority process came in the ready queue, but already ready queue is completed. It's full. If any new process comes, we cannot afford in the ready queue because the queue is full. But it is a high priority, we cannot deny it. So then what we will do is that we will shift it to the high priority process to the suspend ready state. Okay, once this queue is empty or there is a free space is there, then we can resume it and we can shift to the ready state. Once it gets a running state, it will be executed. I hope you are able to understand. Let me discuss again this point. In a ready state, we have a ready queue. The number of processes can be kept in the ready queue depends on the queue size. Now let's take that queue is full. A high priority process came, we cannot deny it. So what we will do is that we will shift to the suspend ready state. Okay, once the ready queue is empty or some free space is there, this process will be bring from the suspend ready state to the ready state. Is it clear? Now let's assume this step. From the suspend wait, if this IO operations are completed but still this queue is full, then what we can do is that we can shift the process from the suspend wait to the suspend ready state directly, because once it comes to the wait state, again it will go to the ready state. It cannot go directly to the running state. So even from the process which is there in the suspend ready can come to the ready state. So instead of waiting for this one, if the IO operations are completed, IO request operation, a process can be directly shifted to the suspend ready state from the suspend wait state. Is it clear? Now we have discussed that the long-term scheduler will bring the created process to the ready state, and the short-term scheduler will bring the process which is there in the ready state to the running state. Now we have the medium-term scheduler. Okay, let me write here. It is an IO request. We have a medium-term scheduler which will bring the process which is there in the wait state to the suspended wait. Similarly, which is there in the ready state to the suspend ready state will be bringed by the medium-term scheduler. Is it clear? I hope you have understood about all the states. Now, when any process is completed its task, it will be bringed into the terminated state. Now, whenever it comes to the terminal state, whatever the resources have been allocated, the resources will be deallocated. It is our duty to reallocate the resources. Okay. Now you can ask me, sir, you have a long-term scheduler, medium-term scheduler, and short-term scheduler. Which one will occur with high frequency? The short-term scheduler will occur with high frequency, then medium-term scheduler, then long-term scheduler. Now, the purpose of the long-term scheduler, or the duty or the objective of a long-term scheduler, is it has to balance the process which requires IO and CPU time. If all the process which need IO time has been bringed into the ready state, then CPU utilization will not happen properly. Why? It will always be switched, because if any process needs the IO request, it will be shifted to the wait state. Are you able to understand it or not? So the long-term scheduler objective is that it has to balance the process which are bringed into the ready state, the IO bound time and the process bound time. Is it clear? So I hope you have understood all the states which are there in the process state diagram. If you still have any doubts related to this concept, feel free to ask me in the comment section. I will try to clear your doubts as early as possible. In the next video, I will discuss the purpose of CPU scheduling, what is the objective of CPU scheduling. Then I will discuss about various times such as arrival time, burst time, turnaround time, waiting time, response time. Then I will discuss about various scheduling algorithms. Thank you for watching the complete video. Have a nice day.